this time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3Y TV.
All right. Took us a while. Seems like we got everything sorted out. We apologize for the delayed start to the broadcast there, folks. Had technical difficulties across the board, as Carlos said. But all right, we made it in the end, Peter.
Yeah, that we did. And of course, we're at Nashville Super Speedway here tonight. It is the return of Nashville Super Speedway here for the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. It's been 10 years since the American Sim Racing Series last race here back on the NASCAR Racing 2003 season platform. And we are here tonight for round 5 of the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. It is going to be one heck of a show. We're already in the qualifying shootout here, brought to you by Midwest Simulations, and currently looking at the fastest times in this session. A little bit of a smaller field here tonight, but it is the number 70 of Scott Eckridge, who's been absolutely lights out this season. Top of the board right now at 29.448. Currently about 300ths of a second faster than Drew Carroll and the number 27 machine here tonight. That number 27 has been synonymous with Jordan Harnish. Well, if you're looking for the number 27 and Jordan Harnish here tonight, he has actually had a number change, believe it or not. So we will not be seeing him in the number 27 any longer here in the series. So that's a couple of things that we're going to have to get used to here, Andre, as the season kind of goes on and these drivers change their numbers. This might be the last time they get to change their numbers before the end of the season.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting development. As long as I had been commentating this league, I always kind of associated him with that number 27, but things change, and as must we. So, speaking of changing, the top of the board has not changed. Scott Eckridge still up there with 29.448, Drew Carroll 29.5, and then behind them, you got a lot of drivers in this 29.5 bracket. Peter, you got Doug Mullins in third, 29.539. Actually, we got a tie for third. Two drivers ran a 29.539. Doug Mullins and Johnny Avila running identical lap times. Actually, no, look at this. Three drivers now have ran an identical lap time, 23.539. Greg Evans joining that group of drivers to run a same lap time. But it's going to be interesting for sure this race, Peter, because as you mentioned, it's been 10 years since the ASRS series has gone here, and it's been a while for real-life NASCAR as well, with the schedule changes. The Xfinity Series was the last real-life series to race there for them, and it's been quite a while since they had even been to this track, let alone the Cup Series, which never raced here. So a lot of unknowns these drivers are going to have to face, and they did have a little bit of practice. The track is relatively new to this service. They did have a little time to practice, but then iRacing went, and they pulled the rug out from underneath of them, and they updated the track with the grip levels and a few other various tweaks and tunes just yesterday morning, I believe. So definitely a lot of unknowns these drivers are going to have to try and trudge through as they get through this race.
Yeah, of course, this racetrack released on iRacing just about a week ago. There was a lot of questions about whether or not this race would happen at Nashville Super Speedway for a while. Even 2 weeks ago at Sonoma, we were talking about this race actually happening not here at Nashville Super Speedway, but happening at the Nashville Fairgrounds Short Track, which is where the American Sim Racing Series ran their All-Star race at the end of last season. There was also a question earlier in the season whether or not this would actually be at Bristol Dirt, another Tennessee track, but of course, the dirt variant of it. So there's been a lot of speculation about this race from the get-go this season, and luckily iRacing was able to release this race just in time for us to head to the Nashville Super Speedway. Just about 30 seconds left here in the Midwest Simulations poll qualifying. It will be Scott Eckridge, we do believe, who will be picking up another pole this season, which is really impressive because Scott Eckridge was on a tear of 5 consecutive pole positions until the whole sheet metal 150 at Sonoma 2 weeks ago. That was broken with Nick Curling picking up the pole at Sonoma. Scott Eckridge wasn't even in that race, but he's going to kind of pick up where he left off. And at least for him, it will be 6 poles in 6 consecutive starts for Scott Eckridge. So he's been lights out here, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about him quite a bit here tonight. But 150 laps is in store here tonight, and all the cars starting to line up on the grid here for the starting lineup here in round 5 of the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. Big shout out to them. Make sure you check out Sim Speed Shop, some great peripherals for your iRacing sim rig, as well as any, whether you have a rig or not. I technically don't have a rig, I just have an office table, but Sim Speed Shop makes some awesome, awesome products. Let's go down to that starting lineup, however, and show that number 70 of Scott Eckridge on the pole with the number 27 of Drew Carroll. Here in the Premier Series, that number 27, look at that, front row start. 69 thousandths of a second slower than Scott Eckridge. Really, really impressive out of the number 27 machine to be right up there at the top of the field. Doug Mullins, Johnny Avila. Avila, winner last time out in the whole sheet metal 150 at Sonoma Raceway. Keep our eyes on him here tonight, trying to go 2 in a row. Greg Evans, Steve Yenish on row number 2. Troy Haight, Will Warser, row number 4. Adam Jersky and Thomas George there in the number 88 machine, rounding out your top 10 there, Andre.
A little bit further back, you've got the number 91 machine, Rye Jones, starting in P number 11, 29.593 on the clock for him. Then we get out of the drivers that were in that 29.5 bracket into the 29.6s with Pete Baskins alongside him in that 39 car. Behind them, you've got Michael Probach in that 72 alongside Tyler Seville. Alan Young behind them in P15, P16, Brian Yazik. Behind them, John Eckert, Jeff Yenish, Grant Brown, and Kevin Stone's going to round out the top 20.
And to take you through the rest of your field here tonight, the number 41 machine of Tim Knott will be rolling off 21st. Jackson Van Volkenberg in the number 12 to his outside. Mark Myers, Jonathan Holstein on row number 12. And making up your 26 cars here tonight, Richard Fletcher and Todd Kirkwood. Well, folks, definitely going to be one heck of a ride here tonight at National Super Speedway. A little bit of a day race here, Andre. This racetrack, of course, when it was raced back in the day by NASCAR, both in the Truck Series and the Grand National Series, they used to run this under the dark most of the time, so it's going to be fun seeing what it's like in the day. Pace truck heads down pit road. The field is in the hands of the number 70 of Scott Eckridge, waiting to see the green flag fly here at Nashville, and we are racing at Nashville Super Speedway for the first time in 10 years in the American Sim Racing Series as Eckridge gets a lead off into turn number 1.
And I saw a lot of wheel spin out of that number 27, Drew Carroll. That held up the outside lead a little bit. And in the meantime, they actually got a bit of a side draft on that number 18, drug him back with them. And all that going on has allowed the number 70, Scott Eckridge, to get out to a commanding lead. Before we've even completed lap 1, he's got about 5 car lengths. The 18 is sliding up the track, near contact with the 63, but he's able to gather it up, although he's loose on the bottom now. That is something these drivers are really going to fight with. This track, there's really one lane where the grip is comfortable. And if you get out of that lane, you lose that grip, and that car is going to be all over the track. It's going to be a mighty handful for you to try to handle. But seems like things are single filing out up front. We've got Johnny Avila moving up to third after that start. 27 holds on to second after that wheel spin. And they're actually closing in on the leader, Scott Eckridge.
Yeah, so Eckridge able to get himself out to about a 3 of a second lead. Drew Carroll here in the Premier Series, making his Premier Series debut this season, I believe, in the number 27. Lightning quick here so far. Johnny Avila, last week's, or 2 weeks ago, winner at Sonoma. It isn't all too often that we get a break here in the American Sim Racing Series XLPC's Premier Cup Series season, but Avila trying to use that low line to get around the number 27. Greg Evans flooding himself up into 4th. Mullins sliding back to 5th, so he's lost 2 positions inside the top 5. Then you have Steve Yenish. Thomas George, biggest mover inside the top 10 right now. He has picked up 3 positions from 10th to 7th in the opening 3 laps here tonight, so keep our eyes on Thomas George. We know he has quite a bit of pace in the Snap-on number 88 machine. A little bit of a new look on that Snap-on 88 here as well. Kind of throwing it back to maybe Dale Jr.'s early years in the Grand National Series. Really cool looking paint scheme. You see the 70, though, of Eckridge pulling away. And you mentioned it, Andre, this racetrack tends to only have one real groove, and that's right down there on that yellow stripe. And that's just due to the fact that this racetrack doesn't have a whole lot of banking. It is concrete, which tends to wear tires a little bit more than asphalt, at least at times. But this racetrack relatively flat, and it's also, we mentioned this, or you mentioned this earlier, that it's kind of a 1.5-mile racetrack in disguise. It isn't a mile and a half. It's 1.33 miles for all you math nerds out there. Oh, contact Thomas George, the 88. Big slide out the back of the number 88 Camaro. I saw that, and that was a little bit of a love tap there from the 69 machine right behind him of Adam Jersky. Rye Jones entering that mix as well back there inside the top 10. He's also new to the Premier Series this season in that number 91 Raconic machine. But yeah, this racetrack, going back to that topic, kind of a single groove racetrack, and it's a 4/3 mile racetrack. Here's the replay of that contact here going off in turn number 1. And I think we're going to see a lot of this here tonight, Andre, as they fight for that bottom line.
Absolutely. They're going to have to fight for that fast lane. You don't want to be out where there's no grip out in the marbles. That is basically a death sentence. You want to make sure you put your car right where that grip is, and sometimes there might be somebody in your way. So however that pans out is how it's going to pan out. But the way this track is, you mentioned how little banking there is. A lot of off-throttle time, Peter. I mean, these guys, when you listen to these engines, they are off-throttle pretty much until they're at the center of the turn, which for how wide and sweeping these corners are, you wouldn't think they'd have to get out of it that much, but they really do. And of course, that differential in speed, when you're going from 160 down to about 130 in the corners, it's kind of hard to react sometimes if somebody in front of you has a slightly different braking zone or a slightly different let-off zone. Now, of course, this is a fixed setup league, which is going to be a little beneficial because everybody's on the same playing field. They kind of have the same car in a way, and that kind of helps them get a feel for it. And I don't think you're going to see anybody have drastically different braking zones. But regardless of having the same car, everybody's going to drive a little differently. So that kind of contact that we saw going into turn 1 with that 88, sometimes that's going to happen. Obviously, there was no malicious intent there. That was just two drivers trying to figure this track out, having come here for the first time in 10 years for the league. I got to wonder how much damage is going to kind of play into this, because I'm looking at the back bumper of the 88. He's got quite a bit of rear spoiler damage. Behind him, the number 28, the left rear of his spoiler is jacked up. And this isn't necessarily a track where high speed is a concern. We're only getting up to about a maximum of 177 or so on the back straight. But handling is going to be very important here. Getting through these turns with this slick concrete surface. If your spoiler isn't in good shape, if your car is getting a little bit dinged up, I gotta think that's going to hold these guys back quite a bit.
Yeah, handling is paramount here at Nashville Super Speedway. Watching a gap grow right now, the gap between Doug Mullins in 5th and Steve Yenish in the 6th position. That gap has now grown to about 2 seconds or so between those two cars. So there is Yenish leading that small group back behind him with Thomas George and Adam Jersky. Another driver I've seen with a little bit of damage a little bit further back in the pack is actually Tyler Seville, the number 11 machine, Arch Telecom. I have to do some sleuthing there while you're talking, Andre, but Tyler Seville had a little bit of contact with Grant Brown in the number 15 machine. He got a new look on that number 15 machine. But Tyler Seville is actually leading the points in the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. So the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown, for all the people in the chat who don't know, is a championship within a championship. It goes on from one race to the next, sponsored by Sim Speed Shop. And Tyler Seville won the last Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown event. That was in Charlotte Motor Speedway in the 300-mile event that we had there. And Tyler here right now being scored in the 19th position, Andre, and has a little bit of right front damage on the Arc Telecom machine, and that was from that contact. I think it was on lap number 3 or 4 with Grant Brown, and it was very similar to the contact that we saw with the number 69 machine. Just two drivers, I think, trying to fight for that bottom side of the racetrack. And so we've already seen that twice, but we have kept it clean and green here for the first 13, make that 14 laps this time by.
Yeah, unfortunately, it really seems like Seville is kind of struggling with this track. I was following along with him a lot in practice, and there was a couple times I seen him up in the catch fence and down in the infield, the car just not quite vibing with him, I don't think. And that's to be expected. Tyler Seville, he's a very talented driver. We've seen him have some fantastic runs this year. But when you come to a track that nobody knows, a track that is a complete unknown, Some drivers are going to adapt and they're going to figure it out right away, and some drivers, it's going to take them a while to get in that groove. Now, in the case of Tyler Seville, I have a feeling that he's going to get in that groove eventually. We just got to give him some time, as he actually is closing in on the diagonal cars here. He's going to try to make a pass on the number 15. That would put him up in the P18. But further up the grid on your camera right there, you're seeing a battle for 7. Looks like Adam Jersky is trying to get around the number 88, Thomas George. And I guess right here is where we're going to see how strong is that top line. Can you play the defense? As now this 91 tries to dive down on the Adam Jersky, Ryan Jones, and didn't quite make it there. He backed out of it. I would say that was probably a good move. I think maybe he could have made the pass there, but backing out was probably the safe play. And now he's going to try to get back in there. And like our producer was saying, he just got his license to race in the Premier Series, so maybe taking it a little bit careful out there, trying not to cause too many issues early.
Well, you want to try and open up the doors and try and make the pass, but you also don't want to cause any contact that could hinder your race or maybe someone else's race. So good heads-up driving there by Rye Jones. Cooler heads prevailing at this present stage of the race. I mean, great start for him, already up inside the top 10 in the 9th position. Also seeing a good start out of the number 72, Michael Krobach. Got thumbs up, cancer down on the number 72 here tonight. And right back behind him, Brian Yazik also has thumbs up, cancer down on his machine. You can tell them apart by the different colors on the numbers. Now, you also have to keep your eyes out for Drew Carroll, the number 27 machine, also sporting that same paint scheme this week. So we got 3 machines right there out of the Loud Pedal Motorsports stable supporting thumbs up, cancer down. Make sure you check them out. Google them here while this race is going on. Put the screen over to the left-hand side and open up Google on the right-hand side and go support thumbs up, cancer down while you're watching the race. On board with Drew Carroll right now because you are looking at the back bumper of the new second-place car. That's right. Johnny Avila has been able to get around Scott Eckrich. So Eckrich now back to second, Avila to the lead. And I'll tell you what, Andre, we saw that number 63 of Avila get the win on a very, very slippery and tricky Sonoma Raceway 2 weeks ago, and here he is again, leading the pack on lap number 20.
Seems like Johnny Avila has a thing for loose racetracks. Sonoma, a very slick surface, a very tricky track to keep the car underneath you. And of course, coming to Nashville here, one of the things we kept hearing was just a lack of grip. Here's the 63 up front again. So I think in the case of Johnny Avila, the looser the better. He was able to get around the number 70, but not without any contest. Because number 70 is trying to strike back here as they went through 1 and 2. He closed in quite a bit in the center of the corner, backed out as they exited onto this straightaway. But it really seems like his entry speed and his corner speed in the middle is a lot higher, and he loses it coming back onto the corner exit. If he can just get close enough to strike on corner entry, force the number 63 up into the high line where that grip is kind of fading away, that would be the move. But it's going to be tough, man. These guys are so evenly paced. They're just fast at different parts of the track. That's the thing. Their lap times are nearly identical. They just find that time in different ways.
We're hearing that maybe something has happened to the number 39 machine, maybe contact with the wall. There's a lot of stuff happening in the back portion of the field right now. Jackson Van Volkenberg side by side with Grant Brown. This is around the 10th place battle. That is right behind Brian Yazik. That is Jeff Yenish and Will Worsler battling for position. Will qualified in the 8th position here tonight, but he is now back to 12th. Troy Hayes, who's a little bit back behind them, he qualified in 7th. He's back to 14th. Yenish, on the other hand, Jeff Yenish, I should say, as his brother is up in the 6th position. Let's see if we can see what happened here to the number 39 machine. This is Pete Baskin coming out of turn number 4 and just washes up the racetrack a little bit. Was there any contact with the wall? I don't think so, but man, oh, contact! The number 91 machine's around on the front stretch. Will Worsler hard into the outside wall, and this should bring out the first caution flag of the night. No caution. Will Worsler's night is done here, folks. The number 91 machine of Rye Jones also has a ton of damage on his Chevrolet, but in all that chaos, we stay green flag. We're going to have to dial up that one here on the 3-wide TV replay. Here, working lap number 24, first significant contact of the night.
Yeah, that was one heck of a hit. I'm surprised the 91 was able to even get that thing gathered up and back on track. Right now, he's being scored in what looks to be 13th, right behind the number 11 of Tyler Seville, although not a very decent handling car. He's really struggling through the corners. And of course, like you said, Will Worsler's night is over. A lot of smoke coming out of the 29 machine as he made his way down pit road. That is incredibly unfortunate. Always bad when that kind of thing happens and then you don't get that yellow flag to kind of save you. But man, this battle up front for the lead is just getting intense. We've got 5 drivers. Actually, no, make that 6 drivers. Nope, never mind, 5. I counted incorrectly. 5 drivers under a blanket. The tail end of that, Doug Mullins in the number 18, as well as Greg Evans right ahead of him. Those 2 drivers have caught that lead pack. And up front, Johnny Avila is just clinging on to that lead. As we take a look at a replay, top right of your screen is what happened. It looks like the 91 is a little squirrely out of the corner, tries to chase it up the racetrack. 89 makes a little bit of contact right there. And I'm not exactly sure how Worsler got involved in that. It looked like as the 91... Okay, I see. So Will Worsler tried to go low to avoid that contact, Peter, and that would have been a good move. Unfortunately, the car that was spinning in that direction. Right there, that contact with the 89 just tagged him. Just by the narrowest of margins, and that put him in the outside wall hard enough to blow that engine. Another car just squeaking by right there. Unfortunate situation.
It is an unfortunate situation, and for Jeff Yanish, it will be night done as well. So Will Worsler and Jeff Yanish, both of those cars on pit road. The only difference is Will is still sitting in his pit box trying to get that damage repaired. Meanwhile, Jeff Yanish has taken it to the garage. Night done for the driver who had really charged his way up through the field. That is going to be a tough break for that number 89 machine. His brother Steve is still up there inside the top 6. He's running right in front of the number 88 of Thomas George. They're still... He has picked up those 8 positions and is currently the biggest mover of the race, with Jackson Van Valkenburg, who has also picked up 8 positions from the start of the race, running in the 14th position right now. So Yazik, who, I'll tell you what, Andre, in that accident, we saw a bright orange number 55 just barely squeak his way through that contact that was there on the front stretch. And I'm sure he is counting his lucky stars right now, with Adam Jersky back behind him in 9th and Michael Krobach rounding out your top 10. And then a long gap back to Tyler Seville, who has recovered fairly nicely, Andre. Last time we checked in with him, he was down in 18th. Now he's running exactly where his number has on the top of the roof of that number 11 machine, in the 11th position.
Yeah, I mentioned, I really thought Tyler Seville was going to get the swing of things. He was going to get in the groove, and we'd see him kind of slowly march his way up through the field throughout the race, because that's what I've seen out of Tyler a lot throughout the season. He's not always running up front, but he does find his way there eventually. That just kind of tends to be his forte, and of course coming to a track that he didn't know. I think it took him a few laps, but he got it, man. His lap times are actually faster than some of the cars up front. Last time around, he ran a 31.2, and our current leaders ran a 31.2 as well. So he is on par with the leaders, a little bit quicker than some of them, actually. And give him enough time and maybe a yellow flag if he's lucky, and he's going to be up there fighting for it. So we'll have to keep an eye on him as he continues to hunt through the field, but just not much separation. We have a few separate packs of cars that have formed, but for the most part up front, man, this is a 5-man free-for-all, and nobody can get away from each other. Johnny Avila has been under attack for the better part of 15 laps. The number 70 sailing it into the corners on corner entry, getting just close enough that he could get the air off of the spoiler, but not close enough to make a move. And then behind him, Drew Carroll, kind of doing the same thing to the 70. It's just this freight train of cars, which also includes Greg Evans, who qualified a little ways back in the pack there, and I believe P6 or so. Now he's gained a few positions, and he's trying to make his charge of the lead. And one thing I'm noticing, Peter, tire wear, not too big of a deal at this track. I mean, we're 34 laps into this run, all of which have been green flag, and we've lost under a second on our lap times. Qualifying times were 30.5, or no, I'm sorry, we've actually lost 2 seconds. Qualified times were 29.5, so they're running at 31.3, so about a second, 1.8 seconds, which still, after 34 laps, we've definitely seen tracks where you get more drastic tire fall off And I got to think maybe these cars actually, as they tighten up with that tire wear, maybe feeling a little bit better for these guys. And got to wonder how they're going to kind of choose this tire strategy. How much importance are they going to place on the tire wear? And wonder how differently they got to drive these things because there's already so much off throttle time. I mean, they go into these corners on fresh tires and they're off it for 3-4 seconds, let alone on these older tires. We have a pass for the lead potentially, Peter. Number 70 trying to make it happen on the low side.
Yeah, that number 70 right down there on the inside of Johnny Avila. Did Avila catch the wall there? If he didn't, it was really close. But here comes Drew Carroll trying to sneak on through past the number 63 as well, trying to make this an opportune moment to pounce on the number 63, but doesn't look like he will, as Avila able to still hold on to second spot, but it will be Scott Eckridge back to the race lead. Here comes the number 2 machine of Greg Evans, though. He's trying to get himself up into third and get around Carroll. I think he will clear the 27 coming out of turn 4. Yes, he will. So Evans now up to third. Doug Mullins back there in the number 18 machine, solidly in the 5th spot. Looking at the average lap times over the last couple of laps, we got a couple of drivers making some noise, including Brian Yazik in the number 55 machine. He's down there in 8th, but Yazik is closing in about 1/10 of a second per lap. Granted, he is quite a ways back from your front drivers, about 4.5 seconds behind Scott Eckridge. But Yazik has been turning in some very solid lap times in his 55 machine. Here comes the number 2 machine. Greg Evans just snuck underneath Johnny Avila. Avila shuts the door on Drew Carroll. So move the number 2 machine of Greg Evans up into second, and your reigning series champion now will try and knock on the door of Scott Eckridge, although Eckridge here trying to gap this little group a little bit, Andre.
Being trapped behind the 63 for so long was maybe a blessing in disguise. It kind of held him up a little bit. It forced him to underdrive the car a little bit. You could tell when he was going through the corner, he had a lot more underneath his belt. He could have went to those corners. He had a lot more corner speed, but he had to back off. He had a car in front of him. If he didn't back off, he was going to cause a wreck. So he was kind of underdriving for a few laps, and that maybe was enough to save his tires and allow him to drive away. As we may have a situation with a number 39 car now, Pete Baskins, as he pulls into his pit stall. I'd say I can't really tell you if this is a planned pit stop or not. It's definitely early if this is just a planned green flag stop, but I don't see any damage to that 39 machine either. So could this be kind of a wild strategy plan from Pete Baskins?
Yeah, we also saw Rye Jones and the number 9 machine come down pit road. Now, he was involved in that contact around lap number 24. So Rye might have come down to try and get some of that damage repaired on his Chevy Camaro. There he is halfway down the backstretch. Right in front of him, though, is Grant Brown. We did mention that the Graphics Motorsports machine has a new look this week. Let's see if we can get a camera shot. There is Grant right there. And, you know, we shouldn't be all too surprised with Grant Brown having a different paint scheme on his race car. But this week, he's in the number 15, which is a little surprising. But Grant out there right now, holding on to the 16th position in the field, right behind John Eckhart, who has a very good-looking patriotic scheme in the number 45 Toyota. Of course, we're closing in on the 4th of July. He's running right behind the number 24 machine. As you see, the fresher tires of Rye Jones just slice through these two. We're also hearing, Grant Brown's headed down pit road. Kevin Stone is also called out that he's coming to pit road this time by, right in front of your race leaders as well. And it looks like the number 17 will peel on to pit road nice and cleanly, right in front of your race leaders. In fact, Eckridge was just lapping him when he got onto pit road. But I don't really see all too many battles for position right now. Johnny Avila was passed for the 4th position by Mullins. So Mullins in the number 18 wine machine now up into 4th. But then a long gap back to Steve Yenish and Thomas George and Brian Yazik Jersky. And then another gap back to Michael Probach in the number 72 machine. And that is rounding out your top 10 right now. As you're caution-free for the first 44 laps here, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really clean race so far. I mean, we've had a few incidents, but no yellow flags. And I think that is playing into a lot of these driver strategies. I asked earlier, how much importance are they going to place on tire wear and the amount of fall off that we have? And to me, it seemed like the fall off wasn't affecting them too badly. It looked like the cars weren't handling much worse than they were at the start of the run. Their lap times were kind of falling off, maybe a little bit less than expected, but I'm not in the car. I don't know what it feels like. I couldn't tell you exactly. It seems like from the way that these guys have made their way down pit road, probably a good 10 to 15 laps before they really needed to for fuel. That tells me they really are concerned about tires. They want to have the freshest tires they can have. And it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out because sometimes if you make too big of an undercut, it'll help you a lot in the short run, but it can come back to bite you later. So we'll have to wait and see. But this battle for the lead is absolutely incredible. Greg Evans has just been methodically working his way towards this top position, and now there's only one car in his way. Of course, a very tough opponent in Scott Eckert, not exactly an easy guy to pass when he's got 6 poles in a row. And it looks like we have an issue in the pits. That would be the number 18, I believe. Just stole that on pit road from those tire marks. I'm going to wager that he smacked that inside wall a bit there, Peter.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Unfortunately, he was having some connection issues on my end, and I'm wondering if it was those connection issues that kind of led him onto pit road. And sure enough, some heavy contact with the inside wall tonight, not going well for Will Warser Racing, as Doug Mullins and the number 18 machine, as well as Will Warser, appear to both potentially be out here in the opening half of the race. The only other Will Warser Racing machine in the field here tonight is the number 11 machine of Tyler Seville, leading the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. In let's see, this is all we have for the replay. Just kind of pops in there, having connection issues, and then just comes down pit road, and well, really comes down onto the grass and then on pit road and into the inside wall. And that is one pretty hefty hit there on pit road for the number 18 of Mullins. And sure enough, looks like he is still on pit road 3 laps down.
It's a very strange situation for a driver that was in the top 5. I mean, we've all had internet issues, and of course it does cause you to blink out, but that was really strange. It was almost like his car had just kind of hung, like the throttle had hung. He dove it through the infield grass, and of course he was stopped by the infield wall there. That was very strange, and again, very unfortunate. That number 18 had a lot of pace. He had caught up to the lead pack at one point. He was running right there with them, and that is going to put an end to that. So that's very sad to see. But up front, Scott Eckert's still leading the way, and Greg Evans still trying to make this pass. He's gotten close a few times, but he's had to back off, let his tires cool down, regroup, and make another lunge at it. He's done that a few times. While these guys are battling, I got to think these guys that pitted 10 laps or so ago, they are making up an incredible amount of time on those fresh tires, because you're going to be running in the 29s for the first few laps at least. And these guys, of course, still running 31.3s, which I would say is about the plateau right there, Peter. 31.3, 31.4, because that is exactly the lap time that they've been running for probably the last 20 laps. I don't think you're going to get much slower than that, meaning with a plateau that definite and that's like certain, that it sets in that early, that is kind of different. You don't necessarily see that at a lot of the tracks that are similar to this or comparable. Usually that plateau hits a lot later into the run and a lot later into the tire wear, so that's kind of interesting to see. But we got a few cars coming down pit road. Is the 43 sliding up the track? A little bit scary there, but man, pit road getting busy as 3 cars, possibly more, making their way down to pit road. And Brian Yazik behind them is now kind of involved in a battle, I think, caused by all the pit road entry chaos. He got side by side with 17, but going to our 3-wide TV multicam, top right of your screen, that is the exit of pit road. See who gets out first under this little gaggle of cars we're doing. And on the bottom left, that's the battle for the lead that really, Peter, has not decided for the pretty much entirety of these last 30 laps.
Yeah, you mentioned that plateau. The first time that Scott Eckert ran at 31.3, we were on lap number 28, so he's been consistently running around a 31.3, a low 31.4 now for the last 20 plus laps. So that definitely tells you folks what the plateau is like here tonight. Now, we are checking out the chat here. Doug Mullins is in the chat and says, Wheel decided to reset, I think. And the number 18 machine, it appears like his night is done. We got the Joy of Driving in the chat here tonight. Rooting on the Graphics LC Motorsports and Loud Pedal Motorsports. Of course, Grant Brown is in one of those Graphics LC Motorsports machines. Jim Foose has mentioned that the King car has taken it to the garage. Nikki Worsler is in the chat. Jim Foose as well. So definitely a good group of people in the chat here tonight. Jeff Yenish and Doug Mullins, the two to officially have taken it to the garage, although Will Worsler has not returned to the rail. He has. I take that back. He has returned to the racetrack in the number 29 machine. And that number 29 out there right now, 19 laps down. Going to need some caution flags to and some attrition to move up through the field. We saw the number 12, Jackson Van Volkenberg on pit road. Was the biggest mover when he dropped down pit road. So that number 12 is having a good night here at Nashville Super Speedway. We'll highlight that as the night goes on. Here is that was kind of a battle for second. But I'll tell you what, Andre, we got these cars in and amongst the field right now who have come down pit road, gotten fresh tires. And now that they have the fresh tires, they're kind of making some moves, which could make things a little bit interesting here over the next 10 to 15 laps until we see our leaders drop down pit road.
Definitely could. Kevin Stone in this number 17, he's got the pressure tires. Like you said, he's been in and amongst these leaders. He's about to unlap himself if he can get around the number 2 and then run down the number 70, which, again, I would say that's bad news for the leaders to have these drivers unlapping themselves under green prior to their pit sequence. But, again, their tires are going to be pretty much, by the time these leaders pit, I would say Kevin Stone and a few of these other guys, they're going to be at that plateau point on the tires. And it should be easy for these guys like Scott Eckridge and, of course, the number 63, Johnny Avila, Greg Evans. Should be easy enough for these guys to regain that lost time from staying out so long. And that's kind of an interesting thing. I think the way that the tire wear is playing out at Nashville here is it's kind of punishing taking too big of an undercut. I think somewhere in the middle, a happy medium is what these guys are going to need to find going forward in this race, because we're going to have a couple more green flag sequences, a lot of time to experiment, a couple more attempts at, maybe getting the leg up on somebody with strategy. But it looks like Yazik's going to be making his way down pit road. He came across the driver radio, said pitting. So number 55 machine making its way down under that hard left turn. And that leaves only a few drivers to come down pit road. The number 27 in P6 there, at least last time he crossed the line, that's where he was scored. He is right up on the rear bumper of the number 2. It sounds like Thomas George also making his way down the road. I would say we're getting to the point now, Peter, where pitting's not necessarily an option. It's kind of a requirement. I mean, their fuel cell's got to be feeling a little bit light at this point.
Yeah, Johnny Avila, the number 63 machine, just peeled down pit road from the second position. So he's going to come to his pit crew. We also saw a quick shot there of the number 88 of Thomas George on pit road. Brian Yazik is shouting out in the chat that he is coming down pit road, or has come down pit road. He's just now leaving, coming back out there on the racetrack. You do have to use the access road coming off pit road. You don't have to use the access road coming on to pit roads. So that's one thing that these drivers have to be mindful of when they race here at the Nashville Super Speedway. And it makes for a pretty challenging pit road exit, because you're kind of having to flat track it all the way up from turn number 1 to turn number 2. And of course you're on cold tires and all that. Scott Eckridge, though, still your race leader, waiting to see him come down pit road. He's put a little bit of a gap between himself as on the number 2 of Greg Evans. There's the number 24 machine of Alan Young, just squeaking his way on by the race leader, Bill Wurzler, and the number 29 is a little bit further back. He is damaged and definitely off the pace right now. But as that happens, Greg Evans closing in on Scott Eckridge here before your leaders come down pit road. And for all the people wondering back at home if, we're starting to maybe, if there's any question of a doubt whether Scott Eckridge or Greg Evans can make it to the halfway mark and kind of cut out a pit stop, I did the math. The average pace of the first 28 laps by Scott Eckridge here tonight, before those tires really plateaued, Andre, was about a 30.5 second lap time. So at a 30.5, we've seen them plateau at a 31.3. That's 0.8 of a second over 28 laps. So that is about what you'd expect to gain on fresher tires. It's about 28 seconds. Now, sorry, 22 seconds. Now, of course, you have to offset the time it actually takes you to come down pit road and the time you're stopped in your box. And obviously, your pit stop itself is going to be 14 seconds. You're going to lose more than 8 seconds coming down pit lane. So I don't believe, based off of the numbers that I'm seeing, that pitting an extra time is going to be helpful here tonight. I think you're going to have to pit as few times as possible to get to the checkered finish.
I would have to agree. Everything you said right there, that's exactly what I've been seeing. And also, you're a lot better at math than I am, so I'm just going to nod and agree is the number 70. Is he out of gas?
He must be out of gas.
He's out of fuel. Cars splitting him left and right, high side and low side. Now he finally has an opening. Down to the apron he goes. Now, we are on lap 65, Peter. That must be the absolute limit on fuel. But I gotta wonder, this is not like Scott Eckridge. We have not seen a mistake like this out of him all season long. This is a disaster for that 70 team.
Yeah, that number 70 is absolutely coasting it right now through turn number 3 and 4 on the access road. And it is Greg Evans who made it to pit road nice and neatly. You can hear that engine just cut off. So Eckridge here going to be in an absolute hole when he gets back out there on the racetrack. Now, good news is he is still coasting on pit road. He will make it back to his pit box. But wow, that changes everything. Evans finally makes it to his pit box. Eckridge now just about to his pit box where Greg Evans starts to peel out. Evans going back out there onto the track. Scott Eckridge finally into his pit box. They will have to get the number 70 machine refired. But we'll have to see how everything has shaken out here as the pit road cycle has completed here now. And just looking at things, Drew Carroll is being scored your race leader in the number 27 machine there, Andre.
Yeah, I mean, he's been running up front all night long. Of course, started on the front row. We know he's fast here now. With everything happening with Scott Eckridge and the pit sequence just kind of playing out the way it did, he's able to capitalize on that and get himself out front. Ran a 30.6 last time around, and this time looks like he's going to be scored with another 30.6, identical lap time. So he is on a roll right now. He is just hitting his marks, and right as it stands, he's got a 4-second lead over Steve Yenish, who is currently being scored in second. Adam Jersky behind him. Johnny Avila, who is really, I would say, one of the front runners that we saw earlier, who led a lot of laps. He's all the way back in fourth, 9 seconds from the leader. Michael Krobach has made his way up to fifth at the completion of this pit sequence, which, you talked about him a little bit earlier, Peter. You said you were keeping an eye on Krobach, trying to, see how far up the grid he can get, because he was really climbing in that. He's broke that top 5 barrier. And he's only about 2 seconds back from Avila, so nope, scratch that. Tyler Seville making the move for the top 5, so that's going to put the number 11 up inside the top 5. And man, this pit sequence has really shaken up this running order. I don't think any of us could have predicted how this went, Peter.
Yeah, I'm up here in the booth, scratching my head after all this. It's going to be hard to wrap my head around this. Drew Carroll is your race leader by 4 seconds right now, folks. Steve Yenish in second by just about 2.5 seconds on Adam Jersky in the number 69, who was kind of floating around the 10th position a while back. Avila, of course, was up there inside the top 5. He's now in 4th. Brian Yazik is in 5th. Then Tyler Seville. Seville was briefly up to 5th, but then Yazik passed him for the 5th position. Then you have Krobach, George, Baskin, Jackson, Van Volkenberg. You have to go all the way back to the 13th position to find Greg Evans. We'll see if we can bring up the little track graphic so you can see where everyone is on the racetrack here in just a moment. But then you have to go all the way back to 19th to find your early race leader, Scott Eckridge, who ran out of fuel coming down the backstretch. And I like what Jim Foose had to say. That's what happens when I do math. And try to do fuel mileage. You run out. Yep, I've been there. I've been there. Sometimes doing math doesn't work out for you. But you can see how the field is relatively spread out there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The number 27 machine just now going off into turn number 3. The number 23 of Steve Yanish back behind him. He's got Adam Jersky tucked up. Well, not tucked up behind him, but it was about a half straightaway back. So some pretty big gaps up at the top end of the field right now. But of course, now we got drivers on fresh tires, some drivers on old tires. And watch the accordion all squeeze back together, Andre.
That's a pretty good analogy, because these guys up front on the older tires, they're going to fall off. And these guys that are on a little bit fresher tires, they're going to close in. And this sort of separation that we're seeing, it's gonna come back the other way. Right now, Drew Carroll is actually able to extend his lead over Steve Yanish a little bit. Adam Jersky staying that same 6 seconds back, but we got some drivers behind him who pitted a little bit later. Brian Yazik, Tyler Seville, Thomas George, these guys pitted a few laps later. They got fresher tires. Eventually, they're going to start closing that gap, and Tyler Seville is. He was 12 seconds back a little while ago. Now he's 10 seconds back on the nose. He was actually 9 seconds back before he crossed the line last time, so actually lost a little bit of time that lap. But they're going to close up, and this running order is definitely not... it's tentative, we'll say that, because this is fixing to be really interesting. Not very often do you see a difference that big in pit strategy. I mean, we saw some guys come in 25 laps before some of these other guys, and of course we had the number 70 running it dry on the backstretch on lap 65. So just a lot of different philosophies these drivers had, and now we're going to see which one was right, which one plays out. Right now, Drew Carroll, he had the call for at least this portion of the race at this juncture. Seems like he made the right call, but we're just going to have to see, can he hold on to it?
Yeah, only time will tell. Looking over at the chat, Todd Kirkwood has entered the chat, which means Todd Kirkwood has left the racetrack. Todd, the number 19 machine, had some contact with the outside walls in turn number 1 and 2 a couple laps ago, sporting the Elliott Sadler number 19 Ray Evernham machine here tonight. Was formerly sponsored by Dodge, that car, but he's running a Ford Mustang here in the American Sim Racing Series. But Todd, hopefully you can rebound next week, as we are halfway here tonight in the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown Nashville 169. Next week we go to the Cleveland Wrap 150 at the Pocono Raceway, the Tricky Triangle, for 60 laps around that racetrack in the Pocono Mountains. I believe we got a replay lined up for you folks of what happened to the number 19 machine of Todd Kirkwood. You see him right there, turn number 1 and 2, gets up into the marbles there, Andre, and bangs it off the wall a couple of times.
Yeah, it seemed like he did get into there a couple times on the outside wall, and that's what happens, man. These cars start getting away from you, and this concrete surface, it does not forgive you. You start getting sideways, you lose grip, that's pretty much all she wrote. It's going to be real difficult to gather that thing back up, and unfortunately for him, just found that outside wall, calibrated a little bit, made sure that it worked, and it worked. So he's going to have a little bit of damage that he's going to have to deal with, maybe get some of it fixed, were we to get a caution. But I don't know. I don't think we can really rely on that, Peter, because it's been clear and green the whole way. Any incidents we've had have been 1 or 2 cars and not really deemed worthy of a caution by the simulator. So we've had a incredibly long green flag. We're to lap 79 now as they cross the line. And some of these guys with damage early on that maybe were relying on those cautions, they have just been having to roll with it, having to roll with the punches. I know the number 11 you mentioned, he had a little bit of right front damage earlier in the race. I'm not sure if he got that all fixed up during his pit sequence, but he never really had that much to begin with, as he is now actually getting passed by Greg Evans, speak of the devil. Tyler still dropping back 1 position. Greg Evans trying to get up there and back up towards the front. And again, this is that difference, Peter. This is those fresh tires, drivers who pitted a little bit later versus the drivers up front who dove in really early. And that gap is closing rapidly. Greg Evans was like 15, 16 seconds back at one point. Now he's under 10 seconds, back in the single digits, and he's going to continue to close this gap as this run goes on. But again, I think everybody on this track is going to have to make at least 2 more stops. I'm not sure they can make it on 1 more. It would be, especially the guys that pitted early, they certainly have to pit 2 more times. But it's going to be really interesting to watch this number 2, because again, he's kind of a closer. You know, these last few races, He hasn't led the most laps over the last few races, but he has always found his way to the front, and that just seems to be his specialty. Last week at Sonoma, he ran up front, not very much, but when he got there, man, he was fast. And just a slight mistake right at the very end is what cost him a potential win. But he's closing in, and he's only got about 1 second to Adam Jersky and Thomas George. Actually, Brian Yazik and Thomas George and Adam Jersky are all kind of in a gaggle of cars up there. So once he gets there, that's a lot of positions right for the taking. If he can get up there, that'll put him right up into the podium if he gets around him. Johnny Avila running second, 4 seconds back, which kind of surprises me. I would have thought Johnny Avila could close that gap a little bit more to Drew Carroll, but he's actually continually hovered around 3.84 seconds back, give or take. And Drew Carroll, his lap time's pretty phenomenal right now. I mean, for as old as his tires are, he's running anywhere between 31 flats and 31 ones. But this gap right here looks like Avila is actually starting to close in. Pierre, check out those lap times.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at where we are in the run relative to where we were last time in this run. And I'm also looking at the track temperature. The track temperature at the beginning of the race was quite a bit warmer than where we're at now. We're about 4 or 5 degrees cooler on the track temperature. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it definitely is cooling down. And also, there's a lot of cloud cover coming over the racetrack now, which we didn't have to start the race. So this racetrack going to start to cool off a little bit. Now, concrete cools off differently than asphalt as well. That's another thing to kind of keep in mind. Concrete holds heat differently than asphalt, but this racetrack is speeding up because right now Drew Carroll is 35 laps into his run, and like you mentioned, he's still running 31 ones. You compare that to the first stint where we saw Scott Eckridge at this stage of the run, he'd already started to run 31.3s, 31.4s, and kind of that range. But Drew Carroll definitely finding a little bit of pace in the number 27 machine. We did mention that the field was going to have to accordion back together as the drivers have old tires and new tires. Currently, Greg Evans is the fastest car inside the top 10, but he's only running 30.9s. His last 5 average was actually at 30.8, so that's only about 3 or 4 tenths of a second faster than Drew Carroll. Granted, Drew Carroll is only about 7 seconds or so in front of Greg Evans. But things looking really good right now for the number 27 machine. I really like his strategy. He pitted 36 laps ago, which would have put him right after lap number 50. And I think he's probably going to come down here in about 14 or so laps, pit on lap number 100 or so. And that will be it. Drew Carroll will be good to go to the end of the race.
Absolutely. I like that play too, just splitting it into laps of 50, just getting those 2 stops, lap 50, lap 100, and it seems to be working out for him really well, like you said. And I didn't see that coming. If you had told me that Drew Carroll would still be leading the race all the way up towards the better half of lap 80, we're up into 88, and he's still got this race lead. Johnny Avila just barely clawing his way up the timing and scoring, getting a little bit closer every single lap. I would have called you crazy. But so far, that strategy has played out perfectly. And honestly, you made a really good point there, Peter. You talked about how concrete holds heat differently than asphalt. That is to say, concrete does not hold heat. It cools off very quickly, meaning when they get this cloud coverage and the overcast starts to roll in, and the temps go down, that concrete is going to react almost immediately. And the grip levels are going to be night and day, especially on iRacing. We all know on this service, temperatures are everything. I mean, just a few degrees of variance either way can just completely change the handling and the feel of your car. So when you have these temps drop as drastically as they're going to with this overcast that we've gotten, which is pretty much engulfing the entire track at this point. There's really no portion of the track where this overcast isn't kind of shading down on this track. So these cars, a little bit quicker, a little bit better handling, and maybe even a little bit less tire wear because they have more grip. They're not sliding around as much on corner entry and corner exit. And for some of these guys, that might change how they drive. That might change their approach to this race as they go forward.
Yeah, I was going to add on that point about the fact that they're probably using less tire than they were. But you hit the nail on the head there, Greg. They're definitely using less tire with the fact that the grip levels are going up, and that's just going to help the number 27 machine of Drew Carroll, as he holds on right now to a 2.5-second lead over Johnny Avila. Steve Yenish is about another 2 seconds back behind him. Greg Evans another 2 seconds or so back behind Yenish in fourth, and then Thomas George is about a second back behind Greg Evans. Grant Brown, the number 15, is headed down pit road. We believe he is in the window where he can make it to the rest of the race on this final pit stop. We have been clean and green here on 3 Wide TV. Pete Baskins also coming up onto the racetrack at the number 39 machine. He is making his final pit stop, or just made his final pit stop, I should say. And he will be able to enjoy those fresh tires in that number 39 machine. But one thing that kind of caught me off guard, Andre, was the fact that we saw drivers like the number 70 of Scott Eckridge, like Greg Evans, really push that window under the first stint, the pit window, because in my mind, I know what the tire plateau is. I know it is around 28 laps, 25 to 30 laps, somewhere in that window. I want to maximize my race time in that window before you reach that plateau. Because once you reach that plateau, you're not losing or gaining anything. You want to maximize the number of laps you have where your tires actually make a difference. And I was just kind of doing the math in my head. I don't think that Greg Evans or Scott Eckridge would have maximized the number of laps on those fresh tires with the strategy they were running, with how far they were pushing it. I think that would have probably only left them, 10, 15 laps on fresh tires. And that, of course, is not that 25 to 30 number that we talked about earlier. We specifically said 28. So, bit of an interesting strategy call out of Scott Eckridge and Greg Evans, especially with Eckridge running out of fuel there in the number 70 machine. So that's something to keep an eye on. But of course, tires can change everything. We've seen that many times here at the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. But so far tonight, we're potentially, knock on wood, looking at our, I believe, third caution-free oval race of the season, which would be absolutely stellar here in the first half of the season.
That would be really wild when you consider the fact that we've never gone here, at least on the iRacing side of things. Of course, like you said, this league had been there 10 years ago on the NR 2003 service. Very different sort of simulator. Of course, it was what this simulator was built upon. The coding and the bones of that game were kind of put into this one. But over time, so much has changed that iRacing has really become its own thing, and any trace of the old sim has kind of withered away, and it really is a completely different experience. So for the fact that they are coming to this track for what really equates to the first time, and it's a complete unknown, fixed setup, can't really do anything to the car if they don't like the way that it handles, and we've been caution-free for 97 laps, that is really impressive to me. And a lot of times you see caution-free races and you think, well, everybody got so far separated, and everybody was just kind of really far apart. Of course there was no cautions, but we haven't had that much separation in this race. The first 40 laps were a 5-car battle for the lead constantly. Nobody getting away from each other before that first pit sequence. So it has just been phenomenal driving all around from everybody tonight so far. Not to put a commentator's curse on anything, but right now, I'm also looking back through the field. I'm trying to keep tabs on Scott Eckridge, just seeing how he's recovering from that incident. Of course, Scott Eckridge has, well, we know, the freshest tires out of anybody. His tires are so fresh that he had to coast into pit road to get them. So he's going to be closing in the gap a little bit here and there, but he is still 22 seconds back, which he did get his lap back. He was the first car a lap down about 10 laps ago, last time I checked on him. But he has got his lap back, 22 seconds back. And he is definitely going to need the saving grace of caution or something to that effect if he wants to really get back in the game. And of course, ahead of him, he had a few other drivers who have kind of been lingering just around the top 10. Troy Haight, he's been kind of fighting a wounded horse this whole race. I mean, the rear spoiler of that car really jacked up on the left side. You can tell it's not quite handling how he wants it to, but despite that, he's fighting through it. He's hanging on to that top 10 about 20 seconds back. And up through the grid, of course, you've got Tyler Seville, who's there in 8th, who's kind of had an up-and-down race, I would say. He was all the way up in the podium at one point, I believe. Now he's fallen back a little bit to 8th. But here we go. just as expected, close to lap 100. Looks like our second pit sequence is starting to get underway as our leader, Drew Carroll, is going to make that hard left turn, Peter.
Yeah, Drew Carroll coming down in the number 27 machine. His Loud Battle Motorsports teammate, Michael Krobot, came down last time by in the number 72. So this will definitely bring this round of pit stops into full swing. Just waiting to see some others make that hard left turn. Troy Haight, the number 28 machine, has come down. Brian Yazik in the number 55, he has his hand out the window to come down pit road this time. Oh, Johnny Avila, the number 63 machine, problems getting to pit road for the bright green machine, your winner 2 weeks ago, the whole sheet metal 150 at Sonoma Raceway. Avila having issues, having a half spin as well. We'll see if we can get that replay dialed up, and there might have been some contact on pit road with Brian Yazik as well. Yazik, hearing he got hit from behind from the number 17 to Kevin Stone on pit road entry. But let's see if we can see what happened to the number 63 of Johnny Avila. Here we go. Here's 3Y TV replay coming in right behind John Eckhart. And I think he just got on the rear brakes. Maybe was kind of spooked by Eckhart there, Andre. And Avila went around in the number 63 machine. So that is a tough break for one of your fastest drivers here tonight. We'll see if we can maybe dial up and see what happened to Kevin Stone and the 55 Brian Yazik as well. But man, pit road dramas here tonight.
Yeah, a lot of issues there on pit road. In regards to the 63, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Peter. He was spooked by the number 70 there. He made a little bit of a movement to the left while he was braking, which, of course, when your tires are locked up, you don't want to turn that wheel too much. And unfortunately, it just started to get away from him, and it was a minor overcorrect that sent that thing back around. And in the case of Brian Yazik, I'm not sure if we can get a replay of it, but he was tagged. I can confirm. I went back and watched the replay. He was tagged by the number 17 pretty heavy coming into the pits. 17 was just a little bit late on the evasive maneuver, and I'm honestly surprised that neither, here it is right there, top right of the screen, and you can see the sparks fly. I can't believe they both drove away from that unscathed, Peter. That was a wallop.
Yeah, that's about as close as you can get without ending up wadded up in the fence. Brian Yazik, though, unfortunately does have a little bit of damage. Not sure if that was neck code damage or what, but hopefully that is not affecting the number 55. Thumbs up, cancer down, Ford Mustang. All too badly. I'm on board with them right here. Looking out front, there is the number 12 of Jackson Ben Volkenberg, who is yet to come down pit road under this pit sequence. Ben Volkenberg currently being scored in the second position. Tyler Seville is your current race leader. Seville on the backstretch, though, he's dropping a little bit lower on the racetrack. I'm wondering if we're going to see the number 11 Arch Telecom machine coming down onto pit road this lap. He's still, yes, he is. He's leaning down on pit road. Here comes Tyler Seville from the race lead. That will indeed give the race lead to the number 12. No, it will not give the lead to Jackson Van Volkenberg because he made a late lunge onto pit road as well in the University of Utah. Ford Mustang. So that should pretty much all but cycle things out, except for Alan Young, who's staying out there on the racetrack. Young will... Scott Eckridge, sorry. Eckridge still out there on the racetrack in the number 70 machine. Of course, he ran out of fuel last time. I don't think he's going to make the same mistake twice here.
Yeah, I can't imagine he would try to stretch it out again. I'm not even, like I said, I'm not entirely sure what the plan was on that first sequence. Like you would kind of mention, you would want to minimize the time that you're on those plateaued tires and they're no longer very effective, and staying out that long, maybe not the play, but turn out of gas like that. I almost wonder if he wasn't trying to conserve enough to somehow split this race in half, but that would have been a long stretch. You'd have to make it to lap 75, and even running the thing dry, he only made it to 65, so nonetheless, he's been working hard at making the comeback. He was up inside the top 10 on the lead lap prior to this pit sequence, and now that he has stayed out and everybody else has kind of cycled their way through, he has inherited the lead, and he can afford to pit a lot later than everybody else. He can pit, I would say, about as late as lap 115, lap 120-ish, give or take. So he can stay out a few more laps should he choose to do so, but nonetheless, he's going to have to come down eventually, get that car serviced. And it sounds like Alan Young is going to make his way down pit road alongside Scott Eckrich, who has opted to come down pit road on lap 109, coming to 110. So with the number 24 and the number 70 coming down pit road, as
Oh!
well, he made the commitment cone, I think,
Yeah,
and just
I'm curious enough that's going to be an unsafe pit entry on the number 24 machine of Alan Young. We'll just have to wait and see. He definitely did make the commitment cone, but iRacing on some tracks just keeps you on your best behavior getting to pit road. We'll keep an eye on the pit time for the number 24 machine of Alan Young for all you folks back at home. But that will hand the lead back to Drew Carroll. Steve Yenish now up to second. And for all you Steve Yenish fans, pretty good. He's got 2 lap fresher tires than Drew Carroll. He is about 4 seconds back, but with those 2 lap fresher tires, might be able to kind of close in a little bit. Greg Evans, 1 lap fresher tires, then the number 23 machine. He is 4.9 seconds behind your race leader. And then you have Thomas George, Johnny Avila, who still is able to hold on to a top 5 position even after that spin, Andre.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic race for him for sure. We're gonna do a quick through the field. I guess we'll start out with our race leader, Drew Carroll, newcomer to the league. He started on the front row in P2. He used some solid strategizing to get up front in that first pit sequence, and now that the final pit sequence, or what should be the final pit sequence, give or take, has played out, he still has the lead by something to the tune of about 4.2 seconds over Yenish. And right now, it's all about hitting his marks and just holding on to this lead.
Yeah, and just looking at the all-time win list here in the American Sim Racing Series, Drew Carroll does have 2 wins to his name. Got to keep that in mind, trying to get win number 3 here tonight. Steve Yenish in the number 23 machine is a little bit further back and having a great night in that number 23 machine. Shades of what we saw a couple weeks back at Kansas, when we got to see him go to his brother go to victory lane, excuse me, and he finished in the 2nd spot. Really having a strong run here tonight. Qualified at the top of the show up there inside the top 6. Ran 6th spot for a majority of the first run, but has been able to squeak his way with a little bit of different pit strategy, but he does have the hard-charging number 2 machine of Greg Evans right behind him, the reigning Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series champion. Qualified this race in 5th, running 3rd. He's led at least once tonight in the Hacksaw PC's machine. We'll see whether or not he can make the move for 2nd here in just a little bit, Andre.
Thomas George running P4 in that number 88. He was involved in that very early incident with I believe the number 69 going into turn 1. Both those drivers got a little bit sideways, did some drifting through the corner. They were able to gather it up. And doesn't seem like the damage that he accrued through that has really held him back very much. Through some solid strategy and just overall solid, consistent driving, he's taken that 88 up inside the top 5. And he's doing pretty well with it. Johnny Avila not far behind him. Only a couple tenths behind, running at P5. Avila has led some laps tonight. Has one of the faster cars on the track for sure. Just kind of fell behind a little bit on these pit sequences. Lost a little bit of time with the strategy. Put him back through the field. But again, anything could change. It's anybody's game, as we could get a yellow flag. We got roughly 45 laps remaining in this event, 44. So he's just going to have to hit his marks about 6.6 seconds back, maybe hope for a yellow flag, and in the meantime, try and run down that number 88. Brian Yazik is running P6 in the number 55, and again, he's not very far back from the 63 of Johnny Avila, so we kind of got a gag of cars forming here, as he is just trying to recover from that slight scary moment going into the pits there. He got a little bit of damage from it, but luckily he was able to stay in the race. He didn't get spun around. He didn't find the inside wall or anything like that. So he made his way out of pit road, and behind him, you got Adam Gursky. Take a look at him.
Yeah, Jersky in the number 69 machine. Sorry about that, folks. I had my mic muted. Thought I unmuted it. Started talking, and I didn't. The 69 machine of Adam Jersky right there, the Beef Thirst Cheesecakes machine. You mentioned, Andre, that contact with the number 88 of Thomas George earlier in the race doesn't seem like it's affected either the 88 or the number 69 all too much. Jersky here putting together a really solid race here tonight. It seems like same thing with Thomas George. Beyond that little hiccup that they had together, Thomas George has been very quiet, very consistent. Same thing with Adam Jersey. Really quiet, consistent inside the top 10 right now. In 7th, he pitted 16 laps ago, so he has slightly fresher tires than the few cars in front of him. Back in the 8th position is Tyler Seville, and speaking of fresher tires, Seville has 4-lap fresher tires than Adam Jersey. Bad news is he is 6 seconds back behind the number 69 machine, and he is being trailed by Jackson Van Volkenberg, who is running in 12th. Of course, Tyler Seville came into tonight leading the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown points. He was leading the number 70 of Scott Eckridge in that championship within a championship. And of course, with Eckridge not having a good night with him running out of fuel, it could be a very important night for Tyler Seville to stretch some ground, because Corey Silva, who came into tonight 3rd in that point standings. Corey Silva not here tonight. Thomas George with a possibility, a slight possibility to move up to 2nd place in points in the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. But all in all, looking like a big night for the number 11 machine. There's Jackson Van Volkenberg in the number 12, right back behind the number 11 machine, trying to run him down. Quiet but stable, consistent night for Jackson Van Volkenberg. He is, I believe, at this moment in time, the biggest mover of the race, picking up 13 positions from where he qualified at the top of the show.
And then looking back to P10, the last driver of our through the field, Michael Krobach, another driver who's just had a quiet night. He's just kind of been running up inside the top 10. There's been a few moments where his car really came to life. We've seen him, I think, as far up the grid as P5 during one of these pit sequences. And he's been pretty solid. He's kept that car clean. And I think you give him the right opportunity, if we were to get a yellow flag, maybe launch this field back up, you could see him pick up a few more positions before this night is over. It's been a good points day for that number 72 team, and sometimes that's all you need. You know, you don't need to go out there and dominate the race and lead every lap every single week. Sometimes you just need to go out there, have a clean run, get yourself some points, get the team some points. If you can do that, you can hold your head high, and that is exactly what Michael Krobach has done tonight there in 10th. But right now, throughout the front of the field here, nothing really changing. Drew Carroll's still leading the win. I'd like to apologize. I thought Drew Carroll was a newcomer to the league. That was my mistake as a bit of a newcomer to the league myself as the commentator. I've done a few races, and I had not seen that name. I kind of was operating under an assumption there, which is probably something I shouldn't do, so I do apologize. But as Peter said, he's got 2 wins, and he is going for win number 3 tonight. And tell you what, Peter, chances of that are looking pretty solid right now for him. And we talked about how Steve Yanish has 2-lap fresher tires, which is enough to make a difference. But so far, Drew Carroll has maintained his lead about 3.9 seconds right now. Actually, I think he's extended it since the last time we checked in on him. The only real driver that really has anything for him right now, I would say, is Greg Evans, who has been closing that gap. He's 4 seconds back now in that number 2 machine. And he has been closing the gap ever so slightly. He's getting up to the rear bumper of Steve Yanish. He's got around Steve Yanish. But that's going to put him up to 2nd place as they cross the line. And I don't know, about 25 laps remaining in this event. 4-second gap. That's a tall gap to try to overcome, but I think he's got time.
Yeah, and inside the top 10, we do have a couple of battles for position, namely the battle for the 4th position between Thomas George and Johnny Avila. The 88 and the number 63, there they are. But then just a couple hundred feet back behind them is the number 55 of Brian Yazik leading Adam Jersey. That is the battle for the 6th position. So we're going to have to keep our eyes on these few drivers inside the top 10 right now. Tyler Seville, Jackson Van Volkenberg, that battle has stabilized at about 9/10 of a second between those two. And then Michael Krobach is getting caught by Scott Eckridge. That would be a battle for the 10th position. So we will see if that happens here in the final 23 or so laps as they go across the start-finish line at this time by. My oh my, been a great return to the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series here at Nashville Super Speedway. Been 10 years since they last raced here in the NASCAR Racing 2003 season. American Sim Racing Series used to race that instead of iRacing. That transition was made, and they've been running iRacing many years now, all things considered. That just kind of tells you how long the American Sim Racing Series has been going. But right now, just keeping my eyes on the scoring pylon to see if any of these battles happen to get real good as we watch Jersky closing in on the back of the number 55 machine of Yazık as they go off to start number 1. But one thing I noticed earlier this week, Andre, and just kind of want to highlight, which is a really awesome statistic, is the American Racing Series. They've been putting together some numbers on the number of cautions they've had. Of course, this is going to be me jinxing it, so we're going to have a caution now that I've mentioned this, and the admins have mentioned it, and all that. But there has been not a lot of cautions this season. If you take away Martinsville, which was the only race where there was quite a few cautions, the number of cautions have been extremely low. And I'm just kind of looking at the statistics right now. We had 6 caution laps, 6 laps at Daytona, 4 at Homestead, 3 at Auto Club, 4 at Las Vegas, and these are, 14 at Las Vegas. These are laps, not number of cautions. Phoenix was a bit high. There was 30 caution laps, and then Texas 20, and then of course Martinsville was a big number. But and I take that back. Atlanta Motor Speedway, we went caution-free there. Unbelievable to go caution-free there. We went caution-free at Charlotte, which also, longest race of the season, 300 miles. Extremely impressive to go caution-free at Charlotte. And then we've had 2 road course races. Of course, they don't really have any cautions. The Circuit of the Americas in Sonoma. So this could be the 3rd caution-free oval race, the 5th caution-free race of the season. But the percentage of laps year to date coming into tonight was at 12.8%. And if you were to take away Martinsville, which is kind of the one lone wolf in the whole mess, you would have only, I think, about 8% of the races run under caution. I mean, that's just nuts good. That's fantastic. And that really speaks volumes to how good these drivers are here in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC Premier Cup Series.
It absolutely does. And that's one thing I love watching about these guys is just how consistent they are. And they're not robots. They make mistakes, but the crazy thing about these guys is their ability to recover from mistakes is just next level. I mean, earlier on in the race, we saw it. The number 88 was so sideways. He had the 69 pushing him into the corner. And I think you take any other drivers, and they're probably going to be wrecking those cars. It's probably going to be a yellow flag. But you had Thomas George, you had Adam Dursky, 2 very talented drivers. They gathered it up. They kept going like nothing ever happened. And that's just what you see so often in this league. Just fantastic recoveries. Very few mistakes out of these drivers. And when they do make them, like I said, it's just always these recoveries that they somehow manage to make. And like you said, very caution-free season so far, and they've just been knocking these races out one after another, clicking off these laps, and just, yeah, it's been phenomenal. Definitely have enjoyed watching this season play out the way that it has. But we are riding on board, I believe, with the number 23. Manish is right behind the number 2 of Greg Evans, and these two have been involved in a bit of a battle for the last few laps. Seemed like when the number 2 got around when the number 2 got around Steve Yanish, not Greg Evans, he's driving the number 2. When Greg got around Yanish there, I thought he was going to pull away. I thought he was going to close this gap to Drew Carroll like it was nothing. But he's actually fallen back to Drew Carroll by something of about 6/10, 7/10. And Steve Yanish has actually closed the gap back to the number 2. And they have been battling out ever since. And of course, with the new sort of aero package that we have on iRacing, getting near somebody, getting up behind their bumper, that can be a huge factor, taking the air off their spoiler and kind of changing the handling of their car. And we've seen that a few times as we've rode on board. We've seen the 23 get real close to that number 2, and the number 2 kind of got to get out of the throttle a little bit there to keep that thing underneath of them. But this has been a phenomenal battle. Of course, we got 2 perspectives of it on our 3Ride TV multicam. Bottom left, that's our TV camera, and the top right, that's our onboard. And these guys are really going at it. But I think the battling that they're doing is just allowing that number 27 to kind of sail off the sunset here. These laps are ticking away. We're on lap 138, I do believe, out of 150. So roughly 13 laps to go. It'll be 12 when he crosses this time. And that's a tall gap. I mean, 4.8 seconds right now for Greg Evans to the leader.
And all this battling has allowed Thomas George to start closing in on this battle for the second position as well. There's the bright blue number 88 machine. He's got the lap car of Rye Jones between himself and the number 23 machine of Steve Yanish, but he's slowly closing in. We'll see if we can get that lap graphic up, or that time graphic, to just show you how the number 88 machine of George really is starting to claw into that gap. He actually just got around Rye Jones, and that means Thomas George will be on the back bumper of the number 23 machine here very shortly. Look at that difference last time by. Thomas George, once he got past Rye Jones, this is going to be a great three-way battle for second. Remember, Thomas George, we mentioned it a little while ago in our Through the Field. He's been quiet. He's been clicking off laps. He's been back there all by his lonesome. Maybe he's been saving a little bit here for the final 10 laps or so, as this time by will just have 13 or so miles here at Nashville Superspeedway left tonight.
And we hit 10 to go when they cross the line this time. That's enough time, I think, for Thomas George to get around these guys. I don't think it'd be enough time to run down the leader, unless he got a caution, but he definitely has the fastest car out of this group here. Like you said, he might have just been saving, Peter, because these lap times, the amount of grip it seems like he has in that car are just kind of next level, beyond what Yenish has, beyond what Greg Evans seems to have in that number 2. I think Greg might have used his equipment up. You know, he was really pushing that car, trying to get up through the field, and here goes the number 88 down to the bottom. They're going to be side by side. Steve Yenish, Thomas George going into turn 1. And there he goes, 88 hugging that yellow line. That's going to put him up into P3. And the sights are set on Greg Evans. He lost a little bit of time to him, making that pass. That's to be expected. But now coming down the straightaway, using the slipstream, he's going to close that gap just a little bit. And through the corner, let's see, what can he do? He's got a lot of speed through the center of the corner, and I think coming out, you're going to see him get a bit of a run here. And he does, although both drivers getting a little bit loose there. I think the tire grip's starting to fall away as we approach the end of this event. He is just barely inching away at this number 2.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the grip levels on this number 88 machine. You mentioned how he rolled through the center of turn number 3 and 4 really well. Well, that's how he was able to get underneath the number 23 machine of Steve Yenish there that lap prior. George is really backing up these corners well, letting the car roll through the middle and really powering out of the corner. That 88 here on an absolute tear, looking at your reigning series champion out the front of that number 88 machine. Got the crosshairs on the side of that number 2 machine here as they go through turn number 1 and 2. And oh, Evans gets out of the groove. He got big time tight. Evans going to lose second. He's going to lose third while he's at it. Moves Steve Yenish back up to third, but Thomas George here in the 88 machine, extremely impressive at this stage of the race. Just past 2 very, very fast race cars, and George, who pitted, folks, on the exact same lap as Steve Yenish, pitted 1 lap after Greg Evans, has run them down considerably, and now he is up into the second position.
We don't have much time left in this race. It's about 6 to go. And he's got a 5.6 second gap, so he's going to need a caution. I don't think he's going to catch him by about a second per lap. Even with the leader dealing with some traffic, as you can see on camera there, I don't think that's going to be enough. He's going to need this yellow flag. But I tell you what, even if he doesn't get that yellow flag, he brings it home P2, Peter. What a run it's been tonight for Thomas George. He has just been silently working his way up through the field, hitting his marks. He had that mistake early on. Well, it wasn't really his mistake. He had that incident, we'll say, early on, and just immediately recovered from that. Got back in the groove. He didn't let that bog him down or unsettle him or shake him at all. He just got right back into it, and he has just been running phenomenally all night long. To get up into P2 after everything he's been through, just a heck of a night for Thomas George. He's up front. Oh, looks like we got an issue a little bit further back. What's going on here? Greg Evans, a little bit off pace there. I'm not sure if he tagged the wall again, maybe, or if something else happened there, but that could have been. We're going to try and dial up the replay here and see exactly what happened. Seems like that number 2, I had mentioned it before I kind of derailed myself there. He The number 2 really used up his equipment. He was pushing that car really hard, making a lot of passes after that second pit stop. And now you can see his car is just struggling. He's on this replay. He got that outside wall a little bit, shot him down towards the infield. He was able to recover, and that's what I mean, Peter. That's what I was talking about when I said these guys in this league, the recoveries that they can make are just beyond what you think are possible. You know, with how fast that number 2 was going towards the infield, how do you save that? How do you recover that car? I mean, he did it, but how?
Some very quick hands, that is for sure. Here now, just 2 more laps to go. Just looking to see if any of the other battles inside the top 10 have come to fruition. Johnny Avila has run down the number 2 of Evans. So with Evans having his problems here late in the run, here comes Avila with a great run out of turn number 2. He looks to the inside here. This is the battle for the 4th position here as they're racing now towards the white flag. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen is your race leader. Top right is Johnny Avila versus Greg Evans for 4th. Coming out of turn number 4, Evans is going to hold on to the spot, slots right down, throws a big block on Johnny Avila as they go across the start-finish line. Meanwhile, Drew Carroll coming out of turn number 2 onto the backstretch here for the final time here tonight. We will indeed have a caution-free race in the return to the Nashville Superspeedway, working his way through turn number 3 and 4. Checkered flag is in the air for the number 27 machine. Drew Carroll goes to victory lane here at Nashville Superspeedway. My, oh my, the number 2, Greg Evans, going to hold on to 4th just by the skin of his teeth. Wow, Evans holds on to 4th. Stevie Enish coming home 3rd, and Thomas George, what a great run for the Snap-on 88 machine here tonight. And what a race, Andre.
Absolutely. Drew Carroll saying, tires? What tires? Who needs tires? You know, he pitted a little bit earlier than anybody else on that first pit sequence, and we really, I think you and I both were expecting his tires to fall off. We were thinking we were going to get that accordion effect and everybody was going to catch up to him, and they just never did. He never stopped hitting his marks. His lap times never deteriorated to a point where it was too much to handle. Overall, that smart strategy and some really solid driving brought him to victory lane. So he's going to burn it down at the start-finish line. The winner for the first time in 10 years here at Nashville Superspeedway. Drew Carroll going to burn that thing to the ground.
Yeah, fantastic run for the thumbs up, cancer down number 27 machine. Usually be Jordan Harnish in the 27 machine, but Jordan gives up the number 27, gives it over to Carroll, and Carroll gets it into victory lane in his first attempt here in the Hacksaw PC Premier Cup Series this season, I do believe. What a fantastic job burning it down here on the front stretch. We know he's going to be a lot of fun to have up here in the 3-wide TV booth here in just a minute. There is your Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown race number 5 of the championship within the championship. Results here tonight: Drew Carroll 5.2 seconds in front of Thomas George at the checkered flag. Stevie Enish finishing there in 3rd. Greg Evans losing a couple spots late in the race to finish 4th, but does hold on over Johnny Avila, who finishes right back behind them by just 0.04 of a second. They were side by side coming to the start finish line. Brian Yazik going to come home 6th. Adam Dursky in 7th. Tyler Seville, who didn't have a great start to the night but hung with it, came into tonight leading the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown point standings. He will expand his lead on the number 70 machine is Scott Eckert, who finished 2 spots behind him in 10th, but Jackson Van Volkenberg split them in the 9th position. And definitely going to be fun to see what continues in that Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown there, Andre.
And looking at just beyond the top 10 over the horizon, we've got Michael Krobach bringing it home P11. And a solid effort. He's the last driver on the lead lap. Behind him, you got Troy Haight, who, man, what a race for Troy Haight. He had damage from pretty much the get-go. And I could tell just by watching him drive that thing, it was not there for him. That handling was not where he needed to be. And despite that, he brought it home in P12. So a great drive by Troy Haight. Pete Baskins bringing it home at P13. Rye Jones going to bring it home 14th. Behind him, you've got Alan Young, John Eckert, Grant Brown down in 17th. Then rounding out your top 20, it's going to be Tim Knott in 18th, Jonathan Holstein in 19th, and Mark Myers, P20 in the 04 machine.
Finishing in the 21st position here tonight, Richard Fletcher in the number 43 Will Worsler Racing Machine. Kevin Stone finishing in 22nd. Will Worsler finishing 29th, had that heavy contact with Jeff Yenish and Rye Jones on lap number 24 or so here tonight. Todd Kirkwood going to finish in 24th after he had some contact with the outside retaining wall. Doug Mullins had hardware failure in the number 18 machine. He finishes 25th. And Jeff Yenish was the first retirement here tonight and will finish last out of our 26 finishers here in the return to the Nashville Super Speedway Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown event number 5 here at the 4/3 mile Nashville Super Speedway. Let's see if we can dial up some of those post-race interviews for you here tonight. We're going to have to see if we can find Steve Yanish and see if we can get him up here into the 3-wide TV booth. I have found him. And let's get him up here into the booth. Andre, why don't you take away with tonight's third place finisher, Steve Yanish?
Steve Yanish, you got a copy?
I gotcha.
Steve, you had a heck of a run tonight. You came up through the field all the way up to the podium in P3 there. You had a really good battle going on with Greg Evans towards the end of that race. And you guys were really bumper to bumper for quite a while, fighting for that podium. Tell me about that battle.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. For a while there, Greg was on my bumper, and he was definitely a little faster kind of through the middle stages of the run there. I think he maybe saved his tires a bit better, and I hit a few lap cars poorly that cost me a little bit of time, made me push a little bit harder than I wanted to. And I could just kind of sense like if I slipped up at all, he was going to get past me. And then entering one, he kind of gave me the bumper and pushed me up the track and got by. And I figured he was just going to set sail after that, but it was kind of interesting that pretty much right after that moment, all of a sudden I was faster than him. So after a couple of laps riding behind him, I pulled back up to him and tried to pass him once or twice, and was trying to make a move. And then Thomas came up from behind and kind of passed us both there. But and then I think Greg got maybe in the wall or got slowed up off of 2 and got back past him. But yeah, we were racing pretty hard, probably abusing the tires a little bit more than we should have. But anytime I'm racing against Greg and Scott with how many wins they get in this league, you kind of up it a notch at the end, trying to beat those two because they're definitely the best. And it felt good to get one tonight.
Absolutely, it was a phenomenal effort. And I gotta ask, with this track being such an unknown, new to the simulator, and of course the league has not been here for 10 years. And when you guys last went here, it was all the way back on the NR 2003 service. What was it like trying to adapt to this track? How difficult was it to figure out? Was it just something that you kind of got in the groove of, or was there a bit of a learning curve here?
I would put it in the top 3 hardest tracks, for hardest ovals that we go to. It's just kind of odd because it just feels like you're on the brake so long. It feels like the grip is like 25% down from what it should be. And I know iRacing wouldn't increase it. I didn't run it before they increased it, but man, I couldn't imagine how much brake you were using then. But you just kind of had to retrain your brain to just stay on that brake really, really deep into the turn. You're almost riding it all the way to mid-corner. So you had to drive it kind of differently than any other track we go to. So kind of once you got that figured out, it got a little more natural, but it definitely took me some time to get used to that.
Absolutely. Well, again, congratulations on your podium. Before we let you go, Steve, anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, Tampa SUV Rentals for sponsoring the car. Not sure how much longer they're going to be on the car, so it's good to get them a podium finish here before they jump off the car. And thanks to the league, for everybody, for a caution-free race. Thanks to you guys for a good broadcast too.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for your time, and good luck next week.
Thanks a lot.
All right, well, folks, that's going to do it for tonight's third place finisher, Steve Yenish. Let's see if we can dial up tonight's runner-up, driver of the number 88 machine, Thomas George. Thomas, wow, what a great way to finish your race. Very quiet night out of the number 88 machine, but you kept hitting your marks, and that's what you have to do here at the Nashville Super Speedway. We just heard from Steve Yenish that he was fighting with grip levels all night long. You were able to fight those grip levels, save your tires, and make a charge up to second there right at the end. Tell us about it.
I guess I just like racing tracks that have really worn grooves. This track reminds me of old Kentucky before they repaved it, and Atlanta, so I guess that's why I was able to save it. I was kind of shocked. I didn't think I was going to be able to compete with them because it seemed like, well, at least that last run there, it seemed like the tires equaled out after 20, 25 laps, give or take. And I started reeling them in. I'm thinking, well, my first thought was, son of a, if I pitted at the right time, I could have fought Drew for the win. And I was reeling him in. I think it was like a 6-second lead, and I got down to 5, and then it just equaled out. So I was kind of shocked to be, I guess, the fastest car on track in the top 5 or whatever. But it was that was an exhausting race.
Yeah, I know. I've raced at National Super Speedway. Granted, it was back in the NASCAR Racing 2003 days, and this is an exhausting racetrack because it's so flat. It's deceptively flat, and racing here for the first time on iRacing. What are your thoughts about coming to this new racetrack to the sim?
I don't know exactly because I have my qualms with the tire model and everything, but yeah, I tried something different to try and figure out where I was messing up, and it seemed like I've maybe hit on something tonight, but I can't judge off of one race. As far as the track's actually fun, but then again, we also had 750 horsepower, which I prefer. So, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it. It's a fun track, but you got to hit the strategy right in order to win. And I know that's with every race, but especially on a track like this where things get spaced out. But I had fun. I wish there was maybe a second groove up in the middle, but what are you gonna do?
Well, you definitely had quite the car right there at the end, and it was really awesome seeing you run down and catch both Yenish and Evans there at the end of the race. But it isn't all too long before we're back out there in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. We've got the Cleveland Wrap 150 next week at the Tricky Triangle Pocono. What are your thoughts about Pocono?
I don't have any thoughts about Pocono. It's hit or miss every time I go there. I know I've been fast there in the past in other races I've done there, and it's one of those tracks. Same thing. Strategy gets thrown out. You better hit the strategy right. The main thing is track position, but I think that's becoming a bigger thing every single week is track position. The tail end of these Gen 6 cars before we hit the Gen 7 just seems like it's much harder to pass than it used to be, and I know that's iRacing fixing or adding in air effects and making it tighter behind somebody's bumper, and I feel I'm always going to be a proponent of, if you're going to have a bunch of downforce, you need to have horsepower to counter it, so that way you can maybe move around and get a different kind of angle to get off the corner and get a run. But Pocono, especially, you're going to need the track position, so I gotta figure out how to get better in qualifying. Starting 10th here was pretty hard, and the fact that I got the second starting 10th is pretty damn impressive. I don't want to sound like I'm being arrogant but I'm saying that because it's extremely hard to pass in these cars right now.
Yeah, that it is, and it is very impressive. You had such a quiet night, and silently worked your way up. Definitely really awesome to see that. Always great to see that here in the American Sim Racing Series. But hey, before we let you go, Thomas, any shout-outs you'd like to give out?
Just the admins for putting up with everybody, all the drivers, and doing a good job of maintaining order. You guys are putting on the broadcast unofficially the throwback to the AC Delco days of Dale Jr. and I figured I would go ahead and paint that, but just put Snap-on on it, just because Nashville's known for the old Busch Series races and Xfinity races, so I figured throw it back for this one, and who knows, I might bring it back out if it keeps running this well. But just everybody watching, all the guys I work with, doing test sessions and everything, and I don't know, maybe forgetting somebody. Maverick Concepts, great paint shop to go with them. They do a lot of the paints in ASRS, and they always do a great job.
That they do. One awesome looking ride out there. I caught that earlier in the race. Then it was a AC Delco Dale Jr. throwback, and one really good looking ride. Congratulations on the runner-up finish here, Thomas. We'll see you next week at Pocono.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, well, that's going to do it with our second place interview. And I believe that Mr. Andre Graham Bush has caught up with none other, tonight's winner, Drew Carroll.
Drew Carroll, you got a copy?
I do.
First of all, congratulations on the win, man. It was a dominant performance for you tonight. I mean, that first pit sequence, you pitted a little bit earlier than most of the field. It got you out front, and I think Peter and I both up in the booth, we were watching you, and we're thinking, man, his tires are going to fall off. Everybody's going to catch up to him. But they never did. You were able to wheel and deal that thing all the way to the next pit sequence, and from there, that was all she wrote. Tell me about just your driving style tonight and how consistent you were. I mean, how were you able to get out on this track that was really kind of an unknown to everybody and just click off these consistent fast laps all night long?
Just having great race cars. You know, we definitely had really good speed. I wasn't expecting to have as much speed on the long run as I did. We just did a lot of practice as a team at Loud Pedal Motorsports, and it just took laps. Like you said, this is a brand new racetrack. It was new to everybody. So I was just trying to get as many laps as humanly possible this whole week preparing for it. Definitely paid off. I was just trying to hit my marks each and every time, and the car kept coming to me. Like, I don't think I started out great as far as speed, but every time we got more laps on the tires, the car just kept coming to me and coming to me even better. And I looked down before the second pit stop, figuring those guys were going to be on me or passing me. And I'm like, man, I'm still 2.5 seconds ahead of them before my stop. So I was very shocked, but also pretty relieved. I was like, okay, just got to do it one more time and we might have a win here.
Absolutely. I mean, by far the best long run speed, I think, in the field. You were phenomenal on those long runs. And I got to ask, because it was that strategy that really got you to the point. I mean, you were running up front. You qualified on the front row and you were racing it out with the leaders prior to that first sequence, but it was that pit stop that got you out and away and kind of free of any pressure from behind. Was your pit strategy kind of always set in stone, or were you just kind of playing it by ear when you came in that early?
I was just going to play it kind of like by ear. I want to see how the car felt in a pack with the worn tires. That's one thing we didn't really have. So I was kind of planning on coming around lap 50 anyway. I think we can only make it like 60 something laps on a tank of fuel. So I was just trying to even it out. And so I dived off at lap 50, and I figured a couple more guys were going to come a lot quicker, and nobody did. So I was like, oh, that might have been a bad call. And I mean, it turned out to be the right call. And I just, went 50-50 and then 50 to the end. I just tried to keep it nice and even because I felt like that was a good pace to have. So it was kind of set in stone to begin with, but you never know once you get started to the race. A lot of your times your plans go out the window. So I was just happy that everything kind of unfolded for me and all the dominoes fell right where I needed them to.
Absolutely. And last question I really have is, about halfway through that race, we saw a lot of overcast come in over the track. When it started, the sun was beating down on that concrete. I feel like it was a very different surface that you guys were dealing with versus about halfway through when that shade rolled in. How did the car change as the temperatures kind of went down?
Definitely got tighter for me. I was getting pretty tight. Believe it or not, on new tires, I was getting really tight. I really liked the slicker condition we had to get the car to rotate up off the corner. But I just had to, do a little brake bias adjustment, get the car to kind of rotate to get into the corner again. That was what I was looking to do. But it was a great day for us. I'm super excited. I know Loud Pedal Motorsports had a tough time with a curse getting the 27 to victory lane, and to come out our first time and have such an awesome win, that's pretty exciting.
Exciting it is, absolutely. Again, congratulations on the win. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Absolutely. I want to thank Thumbs Up Cancer Down for giving me some support to come up here and race in this Premier Series. They definitely came on board really late and are supporting me along the way. I got to thank Loud Pedal Motorsports, Michael Krobach, Brian Yazik for giving me the ride opportunity with them. ASRS for putting on the league, you guys for broadcasting, and I'm just very excited. I'm pretty amped up. We're gonna go drink some beer after this.
And you should be, man. That was a great run, and I think you got us up in the booth a little bit excited with that run. That was just really great showing, and again, can't congratulate you enough. And we thank you for your time, Drew.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
And that was our race winner, Drew Carroll, out of the booth. Man, that was quite the race, and again, I can't blame our winner there, Peter, for being so ecstatic. Not very often that you see somebody kind of overcome the odds like that. I mean, like I said, we saw the way that strategy started. We thought the tire wear was going to come back to bite him, and he just fought through it. Somehow, some way, he found something with that long run speed that nobody else could. And man, it really worked out for him in the end.
Yeah, definitely. It is really awesome to see Drew Carroll get to victory lane. I believe only the 5th winner this season here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series race season. But one thing I do want to mention to everyone back at home, next week, June 23rd, will be the 18th race of the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series season, the Cleveland Rap 150. That marks the halfway mark in the 2021 Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. Only 36 points paying events, and we, of course, do have the Hacksaw PC's All-Star race at the end of the season. But, folks, we are quickly gaining time toward the playoffs starting in August here in 2021. But we have our 5th different winner this season. Big shout out to tonight's race sponsor, SimSpeed Shop, as well as Hacksaw PCs and all the other series sponsors here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. Really awesome to have them on board this year. Also, big thanks to our friends over at SimTV who give us camera angles each and every week, but they didn't have one here for Nashville because it's so brand new. But I got to give them a shout out. Big shout out to everyone in the chat as well. If you saw tonight, we have hit 900 subscribers here on 3Wide TV. How about becoming 906? We're at 905 right now. But for myself, Peter Short, Andre Grambush, and Carlos Acosta, and everyone else in the 3Y TV family, have a good night, stay safe, and we shall see ya!